No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party shifted to the left, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm talking about people.
It's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people, and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe? And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
If you've ever wondered why Elon Musk is constantly at the center of Europe's heated immigration debate, this sit-down makes it abundantly clear. What begins as a calm discussion on whether he's overstating the continent's issues escalates into one of the most intense exchanges of the interview. Everything stays relatively civil until the concept of peaceful integration gets brought to the table. Stick around, because the points raised in this conversation are far too significant to overlook.
But let me
Don't cut this part.
Let me push back on that. Let me push back on that
because
you have
nonsense.
Elon, you have, what is it, close to 250 million followers on X.
Yeah, because
you say things like,
popular guy.
Quote, civil war in Britain is inevitable. Just a question of when.
On the current trends, yes.
I mean, when were you last in the UK?
A few years ago.
Exactly. So I live there. I'm there the whole time. That is nonsense.
You live a cloistered existence.
No, I don't, actually. And the numbers also disprove what you say.
What numbers?
All the numbers about crime. London is a much safer city than any city in the United States. Violent crime in the UK is not where you think it is. In fact, it's coming down. You have painted, and because you have so many followers, so many Americans believe it, a kind of view that Europe and the UK are kind of, overrun with terrifying Muslim immigrants. There's rape on every corner. There's a sort of civilizational destruction.
I haven't said any of those things.
Just not, well, you say civil war in Britain is inevitable. And
yes, if current trends continue, it is.
Notice how quickly the atmosphere changes the moment political labels get tossed around. In today's political discourse, simply advocating for border enforcement or safer streets often gets you instantly categorized before you even finish your sentence. Rather than staying focused on the core argument regarding Britain's stability, the host immediately redirects the line of questioning to when Elon last personally visited the UK. It's akin to questioning a historical analysis of ancient Rome by asking when the historian last took a trip to Italy. While personal presence adds context, it doesn't automatically dismantle a broader statistical or societal claim.
Why?
Well, if you have a large and rapidly growing group of people whose beliefs are antithetical to Western beliefs, at some point there will be a reckoning. They will try to implement their views, and those who oppose it will oppose it, and that's what you call civil war. And obviously, this is the trend. And you absolutely do live in a cloistered existence. And if you'd like, we can go on a tour of Britain.
Sure. I'd be very happy to come on a tour of Britain.
And you will see
you
for yourself.
You come see my country that I live in all the time, and you haven't been to a few years ago.
I've been there literally 100 times.
But when was the last time?
Literally a few years ago.
You know why this exercises me? Because you have really shaped opinion about the UK. And so many Americans I come across and I have conversations with, and and I just had one the other day along the order of, oh, London's such a dangerous place. How can you know? There are sort of grooming gangs everywhere. There's violence everywhere. This is a picture that people get from things that you post or that are posted on X. And for example, you're posting for, what was it, 48 hours of Citizen Vigilante. That film, which, paints a dystopian, I've watched it.
Yes.
It was not fun. I watched it yesterday. It's not a very good movie. But it also paints a dystopian picture of Europe. And it glorifies vigilante violence. It glorifies the murdering of a Muslim immigrant family. I honestly think that it is irresponsible for you to put that up on X.
I think that it's a movie, and it's worth watching.
You're clearly suggesting Europe is a dystopian place, and you...
Yes, I mean, why aren't you doing more to fight censorship in Europe? Why aren't you?
Comparing London directly to American cities like Chicago or New York misses the broader point. These locations operate under completely different legal frameworks, policing strategies, and crime reporting metrics. Using city-to-city stats often distracts from the core debate surrounding integration policy. Eventually, the host pivots from the state of Europe to question Elon's personal online behavior, asking why someone managing space exploration, electric vehicles, AI, and neural tech spends so much time arguing on social media.
Seem to be doing nothing to fight censorship in Europe.
That's not true. I think that
they put people
issues
in
with
prison
free
in the
speech
UK for social media posts. Do you think that's appropriate?
No, and we've written editorials against it. But
Okay,
I don't
great.
think.
Then
And my point
that's
is
the
that
sort of
the
thing
UK,
that I think is bad.
And I think and I agree with you, but I don't think you have to glorify vigilante violence and kind of, post the things that you are doing and paint an entirely inaccurate picture of Europe that you do.
I don't think it is.
We should do a tour of the UK.
Yes, and one of Brussels
because the
too.
UK has actually been very good at integrating immigrants. The UK is very effective at doing that. There are problems. I'm the first to admit that there are problems.
Yes, there are major problems.
There are problems, but it really is not what you are describing to or suggesting to your 240 million followers
I think it is.
And I think there's a problem.
No, I think I'm spot on.
We'll have to.
And that's why you have freedom of speech, or at least
freedom of speech
anymore
allows
in the
people to
UK.
say things that are wrong. But your point is not that you're not just saying I have every right to say what I want. You're saying, I am right about Europe, and I really don't think you are.
I think I am.
I think you will find that most people in Europe, or many people in Europe, don't think you're right about it. But let's come to that.
Yes,
but
because the media keeps ignoring reality.
I don't think that's true either.
And they're programmed by the TV and conventional media.
And why are you? This is, I guess, even to me, sort of the bigger picture question. Why do you focus on this? Why are you interested in it? Because on the one hand, we started this conversation and you described to me this extraordinarily transformative, amazing, civilizational changing stuff that's happening in the next 10 years.
Yes.
And yet you're also, an ongoing participant in the worst kind of tribalism, cesspit of social media. Like, how does that fit? Are you, on the one, they're two very different views of the world.
Yeah, I don't think they're inconsistent.
But why do you do the latter one, the tribalism? I mean, people say that you're a racist. People say that you're, there's all kinds of things said about you, which I'm sure you would disagree with. But I just don't understand. What is the motivation for doing that? Are you fomenting?
My partner is she's half Indian, and and I have 4 children with her. One of them was named after a famous Indian physicist. So I would say I'm not racist. And also, if you look at the people that are employed at my companies, we have senior executives of all races. I don't think there's any racism there.
Are you anti-Muslim?
I am.
That line of reasoning assumes that public perception is entirely molded by social media algorithms rather than personal experiences, local community shifts, or daily news. While online platforms undeniably amplify messaging, reducing complex public concern to, they just read it on X, overlooks real-world observations.
I'm against having if people are coming to a country with antithetical views. I am against that. I'm against that. I'm against. I'm against rape and murder. I'm against the imposition of rules and laws that are contrary to what we've come to accept in the West. And I think it's a crying shame that the sort of traditional media, like you, don't recognize this.
First of all, I think that you hugely exaggerate the challenges that Europe faces. Secondly, in areas I completely agree with you. I think that the constraints on freedom of speech in the UK in certain areas are problematic. What worries me is that the people you are supporting are really quite vile people in some areas. Like some members of the AFD, Alice Weidel, whom I've met, is a perfectly thoughtful person. But in her party are some real neo-Nazis, are some really, really awful people. And your blanket support of this kind of party with 240 million followers means that you have a power in Europe that I think perhaps you don't realize the scale of impact you have. But you can...
Well, good. I hope I am having a big impact.
But why? Why should you? Why should you be able to shape European politics? You don't even live there.
I think of it as the sort of the West collectively.
But do you see why this makes people think that this man who has all this power, he's the world's richest man, he thinks he has a right to influence our...
Pay close attention to how concise Elon's rebuttal is here. He doesn't deliver a drawn-out speech. Instead, he lets a brief answer carry the weight of his argument.
Makes people... It's why, we started this conversation saying superlatives. It's why people loathe you. I mean, some people do loathe you.
Yes, some people do.
But do you understand why? Do you think what you're doing is helpful for Western democracy?
Maybe some people do loathe me. And that's probably true. I don't care. But the fact that, as you pointed out, 250 million people follow me is that I think a lot more people actually like me than don't. And I think a lot more people hate you and the media more than you realize. Do you realize the media is despised? Do you realize that journalists, the view of journalists is like, it's like a favorable view of journalists is like 15%.
I do know that in the United States.
So the shoe is on the other foot. They hate you. They hate you far more than they hate me.
I think there is certainly a loss of trust in journalism. I think in part there have been mistakes by journalists and journalism. I totally acknowledge that. But I also think that the kind of polarized environment, particularly on social media, fostered by the kinds of things you are pushing on X, actually helps this, makes it worse.
I don't think so. I think you're the problem, the media. And speaking of loathing, you're loathed far more than I am. And you don't seem to even realize that.
I think very few people know who I am relative to you, so I don't think I play in the same game.
The media collectively. So, I mean, you're hated. Do you even know that? You probably don't.
I like to think that I'm aware of my own personal shortcomings and the Economist's shortcomings and our worldview's shortcomings. Yeah. But what we stand for, as you know, is liberal values, traditional, classical liberal values, where we worry about concentrations of power and we believe in the individual and the dignity of the individual and individual freedom.
Right.
I
agree with that.
Firmly believe that. And I have long thought that you were a classical liberal. But when I read what you...
This brings us to what might be the central conflict of the entire interview, whether Britain's approach to assimilation has actually succeeded. On one side, you have the perspective that multiculturalism is functioning reasonably well despite friction. On the other, there's a conviction that underlying warnings are being routinely ignored.
Classical liberal, J.S. Mill, limited government, individual freedom.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But when I read what you post on your feed, I sometimes wonder whether you really do believe in that.
I literally said, look, I believe in safe cities, secure borders, and sensible spending with respect to government. That doesn't make me right-wing at all, in the least.
Does the US or do European countries score better on those?
The US is better.
No.
Yes.
Safe cities, much more dangerous in the US than the UK. Sensible spending, bigger deficit here, out of control. You failed to reduce it. Secure borders now under the Trump administration. I agree with you. Before not. But on 2 out of 3, unequivocally, Europe is in a better place. Yet you seem to paint a picture of Europe being a hellhole.
I don't think Europe's a hellhole.
Okay, we can agree on something.
When did I ever say that?
Well, the picture you paint of Europe
on X
is
you're making up things.
No, I'm not.
You're just literally making it up.
You say civil war in Britain is inevitable, and then you basically proselytize for this citizen vigilante film, which really does paint Europe as a hellhole. It just starts with ominous music, and it says Europe.
Well, there was out of control rape and murder.
It's more dangerous in this country than it is in Europe.
Where there is danger in this country is because we fail to incarcerate repeat violent offenders. And that's, the classic sort of Soros DA or judges that fail to incarcerate repeat violent offenders. And if somebody gets arrested 50 times, literally, for violent crimes, and eventually they're going to kill somebody. So you either incarcerate them or people will die.
I think the prevalence of guns has quite a lot to do with it too. I mean, this is a much more dangerous country. Murder rates are much higher, in large part because there are so many guns.
Well, let me give you an interesting number. There are more people that die in Europe from heat deaths than people that die from gun deaths in America. Why aren't you...
National averages often mask what is happening on a localized community level. Both perspectives can highlight real data points, yet arrive at vastly different conclusions about where the country is headed.
Writing an article about air conditioning.
Well, we've done several on air conditioning, and we had on our cover last week a whole long piece about why
pro air conditioning.
Yeah, we're very pro air conditioning.
Okay, good. Well, good.
Very pro.
Good
You should read us. Absolutely.
So, credit where it's due. Credit's where it's due.
I think you have a view of The Economist that is not entirely accurate. So I will. You come look at England, start reading The Economist, and I will, stand corrected on my criticism of you in this area.
There are many parts of Britain and Europe which are not safe. You can't just walk around.
But there are far more in this country. Far more.
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's go and get my fact checkers to check that.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Let's move on from this, because I think I've got a sense of why you're doing what you're doing.
The point is not that the question is not is America perfect. The question is does Europe have a serious and growing problem?
The question
Absolutely,
is
it has a
which
serious
is
and
more
growing
dangerous.
problem.
That's where we started this.
Europe has a serious and growing problem. I'm not going to say that the United States has no problems. Of course it does, but. We should all try to address these issues.
We can agree on that. We should all try to address the problems. My point was simply that I think you exaggerate the scale of Europe's problem, and that
I think people are asleep at the switch and do not realize the magnitude of the issue.
I also think that your interventions, however well-intentioned they may be, risk making Europe's problem a lot worse.
How?
Because you are putting your support behind people who are proto-authoritarians, who are not trying simply to, make sure there is better integration of Muslims or to secure the borders, but who have very clear...
For Elon, platforms like X aren't a side distraction. They are digital arenas where fundamental cultural ideas are debated and contested. In his view, influencing the trajectory of public discourse is just as critical as developing groundbreaking technology.
And you will cause huge divisions within Europe.
I think what you're saying is total fiction, and really, I'm simply saying that that Europe has to have secure borders.
Okay, on that we agree.
And should not let in vast numbers of people with views that are antithetical to the accepted views in Europe, and where there will not be some level of safe cultural integration. This is simply common sense.
If all you are saying is Europe should have secure borders, I completely agree with you. Then I have misunderstood what your interventions have been on social media, because that is not what the view I have, not what I would conclude having seen what the people you are supporting and the things you're doing. But if that's your goal, I share your goal that Europe should have secure borders.
Yes.
I think that's perfectly agreeable. That gets me to a question.
And let me explain what the fundamental forcing function here is for why the borders are not secure, which is when you have a welfare state that provides substantial benefits to anyone who comes there, you create a very powerful economic forcing function for anyone who is below that standard of living to come to Europe. It is an obvious, powerful driving force. And people will come there if their standard of living is, from what they get in Europe, is above where they are elsewhere in the world. It's very basic.
Love him or hate him, Elon Musk remains a polarizing force who refuses to follow standard public relations scripts. But when you look at the full context of this debate, Does his position actually warrant the political labels thrown at him? Watch the exchange for yourself and draw your own conclusion.
I hope you enjoyed the video and you saw everything. So what do you have to say? Drop it in the comment section. Let's know what you think. I really appreciate your time for watching. And bye.